Preston, and there is a new important law in Illinois now that all of you should know about. It's called the Holocaust Education Law, and it mandates, for the first time ever in any state, that elementary and high schools throughout Illinois require, as a condition of graduation, a unit of instruction studying the events of the Holocaust. It's landmark legislation. There is no other state that has it. Today we're going to talk to the Illinois state legislator who fought for 2 years to pass that law, and also to the executive director of an organization that is very interested in seeing that law passed. He himself is a Holocaust survivor. So please welcome Lee Preston and Frank Isaacs. Lee has been a state legislator for 10 years. He's a member of the Holocaust Memorial Foundation of Illinois and vice president of the National Council of Jewish Legislators. And I will also say Lee is my brother-in-law. Yes. So welcome, Lee. And Frank Isaacs is executive director of the Zionist Organization of Chicago and board member of the Metropolitan Chicago Holocaust Survivors. So welcome to you both. Landmark legislation, we're proud. But Lee, tell us how you personally became aware of the need for this kind of law.
Well, it came to my attention there had been some studies done of what high school students knew and didn't know in world history. And among the things that in one such study, some 60% of graduating high school seniors did not know was they could not recognize the name Adolf Hitler, they didn't know the term Nazis, and they knew nothing about the events of the Holocaust. And not only could they not place where Adolf Hitler ought to be placed in history, but they had never heard of the name at all. That gave me, of course, great concern when I saw that study, to say the least. And I looked into it, and I saw indeed through other studies that there was very little education about the events of World War II or what precipitated World War II. And it came to, I got the idea to introduce legislation really through a suggestion from a Mitchell Vogel, who is a president of a University Professionals Association, who met with me and suggested that we put together legislation to require elementary and high schools to teach about the Holocaust.
Frank, when you heard that this legislation was in the works, what was your reaction?
We were very encouraged because throughout the years we advocated that there should be a legislation of such nature. We advocated that the Holocaust should be taught in high schools, in universities.
But you've been advocating this for years and years?
Correct.
And falling on deaf ears?
We met various difficulties. One of them was that very few people knew what really the Holocaust was. There was a tendency to put this in the category of man's inhumanity against man. And there was a tendency to include it in the history of World War II as a paragraph, or totally omitting it. There was a resistance from the American-German community that this is defamation of their name. So we ran into many, many obstacles that when the first negotiations with the Board of Education took place a number of years ago.
Those were some of the problems. What were some of the obstacles that you ran into in the legislature?
Well, there was a philosophical problem of the legislature not mandating that the schools teach something without giving the schools the money to use to develop a curriculum. I argued that there was no need for any funding because already history teachers are well prepared to right now teach about the events of World War II, and you can't teach about World War II unless you teach about the precipitation that the Holocaust had for that war.
But they were teaching about World War II.
Well, no, they really were not. In many schools, they never get beyond the Civil War by the time a student graduates from high school. I know it sounds astounding, but indeed that is the case. They don't learn about World War I in many high schools. They don't learn about World War II, and consequently, of course, they don't know anything about the Nazi atrocities that took place during World War II.
And what does the bill actually require of a school? How much Holocaust education?
The bill does not, the law does not require, they leave it up to the individual school board. What is required is that every elementary school and every high school in Illinois must, as a condition of graduation, give a unit of instruction on the events taking place between 1933 and 1945, commonly known as the Holocaust. And how much every school does is left up to the individual school board,
So
but they must do something.
So a unit of instruction could be an hour or a week?
Exactly. And some schools right now have outstanding curriculum that they are using in their schools, but unfortunately many more schools don't even touch upon the subject.
Did you hear from, Frank mentioned some of the opposition that he had, for instance, the German community that didn't want to revive these memories. Did you hear from groups that were opposed to the bill?
We didn't have any opposition from the German-American community at all, much the opposite. We had support from, the fact should be on the table. This was not something that was done by the German people to the world. This was a segment of a German government that went nuts. And that's a great understatement. But it wasn't the German people that were guilty for the events of the Holocaust. It was Hitler and the Nazis who were guilty for the events of the Holocaust, and the world that silently permitted it to happen in Germany and outside of Germany.
Mm-hmm. Of course, teachers generally don't like to be told what they should teach. So I would imagine the teachers were not thrilled to all, because it opens a can of worms. Other groups could come in and say, we want to teach X, Y, Z.
Well, it wasn't so much the teachers as school administrators who didn't want to be told, again, without having funding provided to them to put together materials and to put together a curriculum. However, the studies that showed that students don't know about the events of the Holocaust speak for itself. If 60% of high school graduating seniors had never heard of the Holocaust or any of the parties involved in it, we have missed the boat somewhere, and it's outrageous that legislation was needed. It ought not to have been needed. If they were learning about World War II and about the events of the Holocaust, there would have been no legislation. The fact that they weren't learning about it required the legislation.
And it's astounding to me to know that we're the only state, Illinois is the only state that has such a law. Are you hearing from other states?
We've heard inquiries from 2 other states so far, and I know that there are some cities that have some Holocaust studies required in their educational system, but no state other than Illinois now requires it as yet, and the inquiries indicate there's an interest in other states adopting it.
Now, the first year it didn't come out of committee.
Well, it passed the House, and it did not come out of the Senate committee when it went to the Senate.
Okay.
And the second year, it got out of both. We gave it a full court press in both the House and the Senate. We had a lot of support from the Illinois Holocaust Memorial Foundation, from the Zionist Organization of Chicago, from the Holocaust survivors, and from many Christian groups were also very much in support of it. And the co-sponsors were black representatives and senators, Jewish representatives and senators, and it really had broad-based support.
And what was Governor Thompson's reaction?
He signed it with great glee when it hit his desk.
Glee is probably not the...
He has been very supportive of the Jewish community and concerns of the Jewish community. He has always participated in the Holocaust Memorial Service in Springfield for every year that I've been in the House. And so his signing the bill was, he had a news conference for it and gave it a great kickoff.
Okay. Frank, I know you're involved in Holocaust education yourself. You are a survivor. What is the most effective way to get children, young adults, to understand the events of the Holocaust?
Most important thing is that the Holocaust was not a myth. It did not happen in a vacuum. It's not a legend. So therefore, I found that the personal description, the personal experiences are the most effective, also the most difficult one. Because for a Holocaust survivor to tell what happened to him, what happened to his family, the destruction of the communities, is a very traumatic experience. So the first few years after the Holocaust, most of the survivors were silent, were withdrawn. But then in the early 60s, a new movement started. And now, more and more books are appearing, more and more memoirs, more and more universities are teaching the Holocaust as a course, as a seminar. We are taking public school teachers to Israel for training to teach the Holocaust. And we are doing many things that was not heard of in the early 50s and early 60s.
And necessary. Well, this is a good opportunity for me to introduce a videotape that we have. It's about a curriculum that has been developed called Facing History and Ourselves. Maybe you've heard of it if your children are in suburban schools or public schools in Chicago. It was developed by two eighth grade teachers in Brookline, Massachusetts. In 1976, they wanted to teach teens about the Holocaust. It just wasn't being done. It was a little pilot project. In 76, it had federal funds. It is now a very large, successful, not-for-profit organization that has educated more than 500,000 students and teachers about the Holocaust. Over 30,000 educators from 46 states and around Canada and the world have gone through the Facing History and Ourselves workshops. This videotape will take you into the classroom. You'll meet some of those students, some of the teachers, see how learning about genocide, racism, the Holocaust has had very profound effect on their lives. So let's take a look at it now.
Such a valuable curriculum in the inner city school. The power of it can be used in a positive way to instruct kids and staff and administrators in the value of human dignity and in what can happen at any time in history, at any place, unless the proper steps are taken to guard against it.
Facing History has taught me a lot about the concept of thinking and how thinking affects the way people act. And I think I've stressed that much more since becoming a part of the Facing History effort.
I think it helped me a lot with how I interact with other racial groups, personally.
When we're in school, we're with everybody from different countries. This way, we know that we shouldn't be prejudiced against them, because the school teaches us not to, because it's wrong. If they don't teach us, then who's going to tell us?
One of the things that has come out from teaching the course over the last couple of years is students saying that as a result of the course, they notice racism a lot more, not just in school, but in the wider community. They're much more aware.
They are pulled into the curriculum, and because of that, they'll do things like write more in their journals. They will think more about the material if they're going to have a test. They will participate in classroom discussion. So I see the curriculum really as a way to develop critical thinking in a painless way, because they want to do it. They're not forced to do it.
Until we begin to discuss these issues, okay, and put it on the table, then we're never going to grow, and we'll never have greater understanding, and we won't reduce the inhumanity to man.
Buchenwald was a concentration camp. I had no idea of what kind of camp this was. I thought it might have been a prisoner of war camp where they kept soldiers who were captured. But on this day in 1945, I was to discover what human suffering was all about. I was going to take off the blinders that caused me to have tunnel vision. I was going to be able to see clearly that, yes, I suffered and I was hurting because I was black in a white society, but I also began to understand that suffering is universal. It's not just relegated to me and mine. It touches us all. And so I walked through the gates of Buchenwald, and I saw the dead and the dying.
30 or 40 years from now, most of us survivors will be dead. And anybody can write anything they want about the Holocaust, denying it left and right. We won't be here to tell them they're liars. We went through it. We barely escaped it. People who are denying it, they call themselves revisionists. Those revisionists are mostly PhDs and professors. And they write books and magazine articles denying the Holocaust. They're making a mockery of the 6 million Jews, including 1.5 million children your age.
Well, they said that people who were not true Germans, then their measurements would not be proper. It proved, they made it into a science, and they said, if the numbers do not match, then obviously you're not a true German, and obviously do not have the right to live freely in Germany. People who were deaf and people who were blind, they said how shall I say it? It was like an operation. They had an operation, and then it meant that they couldn't have any children. You know why? Because the Germans were afraid that they would have deaf children or blind children. Didn't matter if you were deaf, then it meant to them, it meant that you were not really healthy. They didn't need you. They didn't need you, so they sent you away.
He hit you with what? They had this long sticks. They are wooden sticks.
Which were used for?
They was hitting the children usually when they was punished. Most of them was hit on the hand like that. But he hit me on my...
Something happened in the world, and we were being treated like the Jews. Would it make a difference knowing what we know now happened then?
People are teaching us about the Armenians. Back then, they didn't teach them about the Armenians.
To this day, the Turks still deny it.
I know.
We're just
starting
to research it now,
like
100 years later.
I know.
It wasn't even talked about, 40 years ago.
My grandfather was telling me that, like, his father and all his brothers and sisters got killed. I was just talking to him, like, a week ago, and he was telling me, I told him about the class. He said that they all got killed.
During the last 5 years, Klan membership has nearly doubled. There are now an estimated 10,000 active Klan members in 22 states.
Behold the fiery cross, still brilliant.
The Klan recruits not only adults, but teenagers as well. At a rally like this one, 15% of the people attending are likely to be teens.
It shall burn bright as morning for all decades to be.
Attention. Salute. Pledge.
You're listening to the pledge of the Klan Youth Corps, a special division of the Klan for young people aged 10 to 17. These kids don't wear the white robes of the adult Klansmen, but their beliefs are the same.
I think for me as a teacher, the Facing History curriculum and staff and organization is the single most important thing that's happened to me in my teaching career. There's people that are willing to do research for you about the kinds of issues you want to begin teaching. There's people that are willing to discuss with you. There's books that are available. I mean, that may sound like, just a little thing, but for us, there's no budget to buy books. I mean, we wouldn't be able to have this curriculum if Facing History wasn't established and didn't have some kind of funding to work with us.
I did feel very burned out as a teacher. I didn't think at that point, I didn't think there was a way to reach kids effectively. And after spending a week at Facing History at the week-long workshop, I knew that this would work.
Just a great curriculum. And the teacher training component, I think, is very good. Mostly because it's backed up with support. It's not a one-shot deal. It's not a come take a course and after this course go use it or whatever. There's a continual support there. There are materials, there are people, there are resources to bring into the classroom.
There is a passion about what we are studying. There is a real urgency that what we are looking at is important and makes a difference in the kids' lives, in my life.
I think that this kind of unit definitely should be taught because if we don't examine history, then there's a good chance that it could happen again.
Before this unit, I might have just said, I'll just sit here and I'm not going to get involved because it could be too dangerous. But now I think I might get involved because I realize what it could turn into.
It's strange and it's terrible the way some people are treated because they are different. After this, I try not to judge people on first impressions or how they look or where they come from. It just changes your attitude towards people who you don't know.
We have to remember that that's the connection, that we all still people. My eyes may be different, my nose may be different, my mouth may be different, but the heart is the same, the soul is the same, the feeling is the same.
I think you can see from that, from these people speaking from their hearts, how important it is that this kind of information be brought into the classrooms. I know the testimony of Bass, of Leon Bass, I think is his name, the black man who was a camp liberator, I know moved you personally. Frank, I suppose because of your own experience, you were in the camps when the liberators, the American soldiers came.
Yes, I was there. I was in Buchenwald. I was in Auschwitz. I was in Theresienstadt. And the liberation was a miracle, almost like angels coming from sky because we didn't believe that we will survive. My weight was down to 80 pounds at the time of liberation. My fortune was that I was a young man, strong and tall, and somehow was able to survive, but we thought that the end is very near at any moment. So when the liberators came in, we knew about Roosevelt, we knew about Churchill, we knew about the Americans, but we never believed that we will survive it. So for us it was almost a miracle. And then the experiences that we shared, see, the Holocaust is of such magnitude that those who did not witness it, those who did not see it, it is very difficult to describe it because man committed such an inhumanity. Man became such a beast that the suffering and the loss in the nature of mankind. I was a student, I was the only student because of anti-Semitism in Budapest in 1944. The Nazis were already in. And my background was a liberal background as a liberal human being. And we just could not imagine that there can be another person who will kill us only because we are Jews. So all these experiences must be shared. And we are now the last generation. That's why this legislation is so important. After us, we don't know what will happen. Who will tell the story? We are the last witnesses. And we are very, very thankful to Lee and all those who worked for this legislature, because we made a vow, most of the survivors, in some form of a dream or other way, that the memory of our parents, my mother was killed in the Holocaust, a young woman of 45 years old, that we will fight until the end of the life that this memory will not be erased.
So the Zionist Organization of Chicago would, obviously, one of many groups who supported
the Zionist Organization of Chicago was in the forefront because Zionism means really saving the Jewish people. That is the true meaning of Zionism. And we established, in honor of Lee, a youth center. We have a building here in Chicago, which is called the Zionist House on the north side of Chicago, which will be a center for youth, young adults, and others who can come in. We will have a research library, we will have archives, and we will be honored, leave it the highest award that we can give, a Maccabean Award of the organization, and the establishment of these youth activities. So it will be a permanent memorial and tribute to Lee and to the legislators, and we will be in the forefront of this undertaking.
Even if I wasn't related, I'd be proud. Lee, how will they determine what is taught? Who is that ultimately up to?
The legislation leaves the content up to the individual school board. The law requires that schools do something, both in high school and in elementary school. You must do something on the Holocaust. And the hope is that a school district that has a very good program and a very good curriculum will have that curriculum copied by an adjacent school district, so that it will spread throughout the state of Illinois. The Illinois Holocaust Memorial Foundation has a wealth of materials that are available. Dr. Leon Stein at Roosevelt University put together all sorts of materials with the Holocaust Memorial Foundation, and they're anxious to have schools come and participate and to partake of whatever they can give them.
Does something like this have to be monitored to see if schools are complying, or is the assumption that everyone will comply?
No, I make no assumption. Yes, it has to be monitored. We certainly will be looking to see what schools are doing to make sure that they are doing what the intent of the law was, and that's to have students graduating from elementary and high school with some knowledge of the events that Frank was talking about, so that we don't have a generation following our generation that will never have heard of the events of the Holocaust and will not be aware or alert to things that take place in society that might warn us of another one to come.
You know, there's another situation developing that I think some people aren't aware of. We've spoken of many times. We've mentioned on the show before, but we should bring it up again, which is the decreasing number of Jews in public office, holding public office in this state, in this country, but certainly in this state. Those are scary statistics to me.
Well, it certainly is scary. When I first came to government in 1979, to the House of Representatives, there were 10 members of the Jewish community in the House. I made a minion in the House. Today there are 4. When I first came to government in '79, there was a member of the Jewish community on the Illinois Supreme Court. Today there is none. There was a member of the Jewish community on the Cook County Board. Today there is none. There was a member of the Jewish community in the executive branch of Cook County government, Sheriff Elrod. Today there is none. And there are no Jews in House leadership and Senate leadership. There simply are virtually no Jews in public office in the state of Illinois and in the county of Cook. And Cook County has one of the largest Jewish populations of any county in the United States.
So why is this happening?
Well, if I have to assign blame to it, I have to look at us. I think the organized Jewish community, the Jewish community at large, simply hasn't put on its agenda list a high priority to electing members of its community to office. And I have to be very honest and tell you that were it not for the now 7 Jews total in the House and Senate in Illinois out of 177 members, the Holocaust education law never would have come into being, because it takes a special sensitivity to the unique attributes of the Jewish community to be able to take its concerns to the legislature and look out for the Jewish community's concerns. So the Jewish community at large should be concerned. Who is going to be there protecting Israel in the Congress of the United States in years to come if you don't have a layer of Jewish office holders to take a step forward and to move into congressional seats?
Frank, as someone who lived through a time when Jews were so powerless, is that frightening to you to hear this diminishing numbers of Jews?
Yes, because there is an area that is still debated, and that is the American Jewish attitude during the Holocaust. There were surveys, there was research, there is accusation that the American Jewish community was silent, and the reason that it was too timid. Now, it was felt, however, that with the establishment of the State of Israel, a new American Jew is emerging.
Well.
A proud, militant Jew who is not afraid to go out there, who is not the core Jew anymore.
Okay. I'm afraid we're out of time, but I want to thank you both for being here today, Lee Preston, Frank Isaacs, and thank you for joining us. Shalom.